Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 141, and this week we are talking Cody Rhodes. No, I'm sorry, we're talking Homelander.
I got nothing.
As I understand it, I'm not really an AEW guy. I'm not really a wrestling guy at present. But as I understand it, Cody Rhodes' current gimmick is basically Homelander.
Yes, it is. It is very close to that. Well, not nearly as vulgar, but yes.
The American Nightmare, so to speak. And so, yeah, I was in a group chat with a bunch of podcasters and somebody made a reference to Cody Rhodes and Homelander. And I was like, oh, we're doing Cody Rhodes. We're doing Homelander in a couple weeks. I said, so there will probably be a reference. And so I just kind of figured that was really the only one I could make. Again, I haven't watched AEW, but I knew it would get a laugh out of Doc. So that was a joke for an audience of maybe two, you and Matt, who picked this episode. So Matt, in his inimitable way, wrote out his lengthy issues, but we will get to that momentarily. So Homelander, created by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson in The Boys #3, November of 2006. Now, for our patrons, and if you go to patreon.com/capesonthecouch and subscribe, you can unlock our trade paperback reviews. We actually did a review of The Boys Volume 1, the first 6 issues or so. It is not a book that I loved. If you listened to the review, you will understand why. It's because in Garth Ennis's world, the superheroes are assholes, and the only way to beat an asshole is by being a bigger asshole. And there's nobody with any redeeming qualities whatsoever in a Garth Ennis book. And we talk about that when we did The Punisher, the review with Matt. So he's got a thing for Garth Ennis, I guess. So this is going to be about the comics, not necessarily about the Homelander that is on the show, which I do have to say I thoroughly enjoyed seasons 1 and 2. Anthony Starr is, I said to Matt, he is to me a pitch perfect casting on the level of like an RDJ for an Iron Man or a Chris Evans as Cap. Anthony Starr embodies so much of the character in the show. It's wonderful to watch him, and it's wonderful to hate him, because he is not a character you're supposed to like. If you find yourself empathizing with Homelander, talk to a professional, because you need some help. So Homelander is introduced as the leader and most powerful member of the Seven, which is a group of corporate-sponsored superheroes. Vought American is this big conglomerate. They're basically Disney, but even shadier, if such a thing were possible. It's if Disney were run by Mark Zuckerberg. Like, that's as
man,
best.
You're going all in, huh?
Listen, I hate that guy. So it's as if Disney and Facebook were combined and they controlled actual superheroes. He is initially, it comes off as this sort of affable guy, only to reveal he's actually a misogynistic jerk. And it gets worse from there. I'm not going to get into all of the horrible things that he does. Suffice to say that he is a misogynist, a racist. He's bad. And Matt is going to get into that in the issues. So his public backstory is that he was an alien who landed on Earth. Sound familiar? But in reality, his mother was a mentally disabled woman who died in childbirth, and he was basically the byproduct of genetic experiments from Stormfront, who was a Nazi superhero. So they basically got Stormfront's genetic material, they tweaked it, and then they stuck it into this mentally disabled woman who died giving birth to him. He spent his childhood strapped to a hydrogen bomb in case he tried to escape. This was somebody who was literally raised without any connection to humanity whatsoever. it's terrifying just on a conceptual level. So Homelander really hates being a hero, but he only does it because Vought pays him a lot of money and they fund he and the Seven. They're all assholes. Every single one of them, except for what's her name? The girl.
Yeah, I know.
The Christian one who
I know.
who pops
I
up.
forgot. I can't
She's
pretend that.
the Pollyanna one.
I'm one of those. I know. I'm just one of those people. Like there are certain things I get through once, be it reading or watching it, and then I'm done. Reading the
Starlight,
boys.
Janine pointed out in the live chat. Starlight.
Because reading the book, that was literally a one and done. I read through not just volume 1. I read through a bit more, and I realized this just isn't for me.
Same. I read volume 1 for the trade review, and then I continued to read a little bit more as part of the research for this episode, but I need a shower. Yeah, Starlight is the first one, is how we discover just how much of a heel Homelander truly is. So it's later revealed that Billy Butcher, who is the head of a group of humans who hate the Seven and are basically hired to keep them in check, Billy has special dislike for Homelander because Homelander raped his wife, who then died giving birth to a superpowered baby, which Billy then had killed.
Because comics.
So Homelander is revealed to later on have no memory of this or many other horrific acts for which he is blamed. This causes him to have a psychotic break, and then he basically just begins doing whatever comes to mind. So all those intrusive thoughts that I get and you get, and every single one of us from time to time get those intrusive thoughts where you're just talking to somebody and you're like, I wonder what happened if I just punched him in the face.
Yep.
Side note, Jim Carrey had a fantastic, this is back when Jim Carrey was doing stand-up, so this goes to show you how long ago it was. Jim Carrey had a great statement. He said, insanity is never that far away. It's only as close as saying yes to the wrong impulse, which I think is just
well said.
Brilliantly succinct. So he begins just following all of these intrusive thoughts, just doing whatever he wants because he considers himself basically above reproach. And he basically says to the Seven, we are all gods. No one can touch us. Why don't we do whatever we want? So the reason we discover that he has no memory is because the horrible acts were actually committed by Black Noir, who is a clone of Homelander that Vought created to keep Homelander in check. That if Homelander ever went rogue, Black Noir is specifically designed to be the one to bring him down. However, since Black Noir's sole purpose is to kill Homelander, and he is constantly being deprived of that opportunity, he does all these horrible things, rape, murder, just the list goes on, takes photographic proof of it, and then uses it to gaslight Homelander to drive him insane in order to justify killing him. So he's like, oh, now you went off the chain, now I can kill you. So Homelander and Black Noir fight. Black Noir kills Homelander, but he himself gets injured enough that Billy finishes him off with a crowbar. And now superheroes are been completely just discredited. Vought is basically discredited. You know, all those articles about, oh, this is going to be the thing that brings them down. No, this is the thing that brings them down. You know, it's like we're constantly hearing about how, oh, this is the Facebook papers. This is what's going to bring down Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I know I keep harping on it, but again, it's just, you know, conceptually, I'm trying to make it in a way that you will understand it. So the issues, and again, Matt, as he is wont to do, and as we love, has a lengthy write-up, which I will read because he says it better than I could. Homelander. Wow. The layers upon layers to this guy. He really is just the embodiment of the nature versus nurture argument writ large, isn't he? Injected with an artificial compound to give him superpowers in the womb, mother died giving birth to him, spent his entire childhood chained to a hydrogen bomb so he wouldn't escape from Vought, raised with no other purpose in life but to become a living, corporate-sanctioned product whose image and likeness would be sold for profit while he awed and wowed a company's customers. Given every single ounce of hedonistic excess he could ever want by his company to keep him happy and cooperative, and basically to stop him from using his powers to destroy the world and or enslave the human race. This naturally instilled in him some deep-seated psychological issues. So we're going to start with number 1, entitlement. I mean, holy crap. The man's mantra is, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Coercing women into sex, not a problem. Gleefully using his powers against civilians, assholes shouldn't have been standing there. It's positively bone-chilling the way he doesn't even give his actions a second thought or much of a first one.
Oh, wow. So the idea of entitlement references what we've come to think of as, well, actually, no, that really is the term. There really is no other psychological way to put it. It's how you value your life in terms of what other people are willing to give to you. And the main point is, even if people don't give it to you, you proceed to take it. When you have a value structure that's based purely on self-gratification, it isn't even always instant gratification, but certainly can be. We've talked about hedonism before. It doesn't necessarily ingratiate you to other people immediately. But what I'm about to say is very perverse, but still true. It is what we sometimes want to see from people in a position that we want to be, and sometimes the people that we emulate. How cool is it when someone, as Anthony had mentioned wrestling, how cool is it when someone that you consider to be your favorite character, wrestler, whatever, in any genre, it doesn't have to be wrestling, but they end up winning? Because they're your favorite, you have therefore said, oh, well, that's something that is gratifying to me, and therefore that means it's good in general. We generalize what we consider good for our individual sake towards others with the expectation that because we are more important than anyone else, we pretty much should be the ones running the show. This doesn't have to be as negative as I make it sound. And I think I referenced this, and I apologize, a little behind the curtain stuff. We recorded these episodes back to back, but we just did an episode where I pointed out nobody's story ends at the time that we think it should, but we're always the stars in our own story. If we were writing something, it's just natural for us to be the main character. That's fine for the things that you want in life, but recognize everybody's doing the exact same thing. And so there's an automatic competition there. Homelander doesn't have the awareness to say that competition is even a worthy goal. Like, he's not trying to meet anybody in the middle. He's not even trying to create alliances, any of that stuff, in the sense that he just wants what he wants when he wants it. And that is something that we get away with as children, as Anthony can attest to. And even then, we don't really get away with it. It's more like we tolerate it because we know that there are other reactions that have to form over time. But if you don't do that past the age of 3, then you're not considered a person that's really worthy of doing all the things we expect an adult to do in society. So the fact that this guy is getting all of this stuff and doing all of these things with the notion that no other person is worthy of the same level of consideration is beyond dangerous. It's incredibly isolating. And if it weren't for the fact that he had all of these powers that other people seem to deem valuable, then we wouldn't be talking about Homelander, the complete menace that did so much horrible in the world while still putting on the facade of doing good. We'd be talking about Homelander, the hermit that didn't have anything in life because even though he thought he was worthy of it all, no one else did.
Okay. Yeah. So issue number 2 is complete lack of empathy. The man does not even consider non-Supes to be people. Absolutely does not care about the damage any of his actions cause. Also can't even be bothered to try to help people in need unless it's his bosses telling him to. On 9/11, doesn't even want to try and save the plane until someone points out they'll probably get fired if they don't. So I'll go through the whole rest of the thing and then we'll go back.
Yeah.
So number 3, unapologetically racist and sexist, has a hierarchy even among his fellow Supes. Women are beneath men. Non-whites are beneath whites. Basically, anyone who's not him or just like him is beneath him. Referencing the deep, as Bill Burr would say, he drops the hard R, hits the dismount, and sticks the landing. Multiple times. Views Maeve and Starlight as sex objects first, superheroes second. But, and this is a but, It's implied that he at least tried to adhere to the idealism of a hero early on in his career, even if he was a bit of a prick about it. And it was nonstop long-term gaslighting campaign of Black Noir, tricking him into believing he suffered from blackouts where he committed horrific acts of rape and mass murder and had no memory of it, that caused him to go full-blown monster, that he thought to himself, in for a penny, in for a pound. After he's descended into what we see in the comics, we learn that the major issue that he struggled with his whole life is that, as Stillwell points out in their big confrontation, with all his power, he really is nothing special at his core. There is literally not one person chosen at random who couldn't do everything he'd done in his life if they were given his powers. Oh boy, does that eat at him. He's nobody, just a guy who won the superpower lottery and decided to treat it like most people do when they win the actual lottery. Man, that's a lot of meat to chew on right there. And Matt's in the live chat and adds that 9/11 scene in the comics is chilling, probably because unlike a lot of the other stuff that happens, in the books, it's all, most of the other stuff that we read and we see is like, okay, that's just random stuff. 9/11 happened. We saw it. Doc and I and Matt, we were in college when we watched it happen live. Like, we remember it. So to see the takeoff on that, it hits you differently. But getting back to the lack of empathy, as Matt says, anybody who's not a superhero doesn't even register for him. And we're going to get into that a little bit in the skit. But the only people that he'll even deal with are the people who sign his paychecks. And that's begrudgingly so. Like, teeth grittingly so. The only connections he has, quote unquote, with anybody on any semi-human level are other Supes, are other powered individuals. That disconnect is, I don't know how else to say, that's bad. Without even getting into the whole powered thing, it's bad. And having the powers that he has, the flying brick power set, the Superman analog, makes it way worse.
There's not much else to add, because this is one of the things that I think everybody can truly just viscerally understand at face value. And it's something that I will give credit to Ennis about, because when we think of what makes a person a quote unquote bad person, yes, we think of people doing bad things, but you can usually find the hook as to what is a deeper motivation for someone to do what we consider to be bad things. It's way worse when you can't. And when someone truly, from every action, every word, every emotional response, when all of it points to this underlying belief that people are not worthy of love and respect, that's a pain that I don't like experiencing at all. I personally have never felt that way, so I can't compare myself to anyone else. But dare I say, I've seen glimpses of it in others. And to be honest, I feel like it brings out the worst in everyone around them as well, because you get the temptation of fighting fire with fire. Like, if you don't care about me, then I'm not going to care about you. And that's adding the layer of self-preservation, meaning if someone attacks someone you love or something you care about, then you're going to defend it. That makes perfect sense. That's basic survival. But then to add that other layer where you're quote unquote stooping down to the person's level and even having that temptation and thinking that that's the only way, justifying that that's how you have to do it. That's the whole premise of The Boys. That's exactly it, as you had so eloquently put it. This is not a matter of treating someone. This is a matter of protecting society if people get to this point. And I can already see some of the people that have a philosophical bent. Well, doctor, you're pointing out that when people do bad things, we do have complete systems in place that allow for us to make sure those things don't continue regardless of a person's mindset. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, what if the person has that mindset, but because they lack the powers, the ability, the influence, the other traits, intelligence, charisma, etc., the things that would put someone in a position to do bad things, they don't even have the opportunity. They don't have the resources, the means, all of that, but they still have this lack of empathy. That means that this is a person that is always lurking somewhere and we never know who it is. The reason why I bring it up this way is because it's the most terrifying thought that I ever get. And thankfully it doesn't happen often, but there are times where I've had patients where, and once again, I apologize. You're not going to get this in the DSM. You're not going to get it in the American Psychiatric Association guidelines, but every single practitioner, every mental health professional, every counselor, therapist, social worker, nurse, and anyone else that does this, mental health associate, all of us, you get your gut and you get that feeling from someone when you realize there's something really bad that's going on here and I don't know what it is. And when you get that feeling, you don't hide it. You make sure that you talk to your colleagues about it because either they're going to give you information that's going to lead to a resolution, so you realize that it was a little off base or needed just more data so you felt more comfortable, or they're going to agree with you and you are going to do your best, even if that person hasn't physically done something yet, to take every precaution so that when the news cameras come around and years later when they say and they go through the chart, like, well, why didn't you do something? You point out, oh, I did everything I legally could. It doesn't matter when someone doesn't actually do something that either breaks the law or violates something for hospitalization. You do everything you can to make connections with people because you don't know what happens when those connections are broken.
Yeah. I can't imagine what it's like to have to experience something like that on a professional level. I know that personally, on the handful of instances in which I've encountered someone in my personal life that I find is just missing just that little bit of humanity, it sets off all kinds of alarms in my head. But I have the ability to just disregard them or, walk away by and large. For someone like you dealing with them on a professional level like that, knowing that it's kind of your responsibility to address what you can and then hopefully cross your fingers, pray to whatever data you choose to believe in that you've done what you can legally, morally, ethically, and otherwise, that's a heavy burden. I give you a lot of credit on that. Matt says in the live chat, why Homelander chills me to the bone so much is in part knowing that there are real life versions of him more than we'd be comfortable acknowledging. Absolutely. Aside from the powers, obviously, but they have power in other ways. Cough, cough, Zuckerberg. I'm calling it like I see it, man.
Okay, is what it is.
So the racism and sexism is Matt's third point. That's something that I think to some extent would be literally bred into him because of who his genetic father is, Stormfront.
Well, be careful with that because that also leads to the idea that racism and sexism is predetermined. Well,
I'm just pointing out from a comic standpoint, I think that yes, I agree that the whole notion of in reality that racism and sexism are predetermined, I think is bunk. I'm just talking about from a comic standpoint, and I'm just finding it interesting, from the story perspective that he's genetically Stormfront's son to a large extent, and that thus that has something to do with it. I think that also ties in with the empathy and lack thereof, obviously. What do you say to that?
You can cut this part out, but I say, F you. That's what I say to that. I mean,
Oh, I would leave that in.
Well, okay. So this is something that I struggle with personally because I admit when someone says something that is overtly racist or sexist, I usually get angry and I yell a bit and I say it's not appropriate and don't do that. And I call it out when I see it. If it's a patient and it's not someone that, I don't want to punch anybody in the face, so I'm not going to do that, but I do have the right to walk away and regather my thoughts so that I can try and do something constructive for the person to help them out in whatever condition they are, while still acknowledging that I don't agree with their stance. That's the professional answer, but I'm also giving the personal answer that makes it incredibly difficult. And I've actually been in meetings with this where I point out for so many people, the best thing you can do, as you already said, when dealing with someone that's in this circumstance is to walk away. But what if it's your job? That's a very difficult thing to do, but you have to make sure that you set proper boundaries. So I'm dealing with this with my own bias as a psychiatrist, not just as a human being. But really, that's what it comes down to anyway. And the more that we can at least have the conversations that acknowledge we shouldn't have to take this crap. We shouldn't have to pretend that, well, this person is suffering with depression or anxiety or whatever other constellation of symptoms, and it's putting a toll on them, and they may be saying some things that they didn't mean. If that's the case, then so be it. It's true that the colloquial saying is hurt people hurt people. That's fair. Totally reasonable. But then that still has to lead to acknowledgement that it hurt. So I don't have a great answer for this. I really don't. I'll give full disclosure. I'm a member of the Black Psychiatrist Caucus, part of a subset of the American Psychiatric Association. And so the email chains that we deal with on this is something that we struggle with on a regular basis, where how are we supposed to handle these situations? And some of it is, to be very candid, from an activism standpoint. What do we do to help change the minds of people that don't see this as a thing that needs to be addressed when it comes to patients? Because for the longest time, well, let me make this clear. For decades now, it has not been acceptable for people to have these stances, and it is considered a problem. The thing is, for the longest time, it hasn't been considered a quote unquote mental health problem. It's just simply that this person shouldn't do this. And if you do this, you're a jerk. You're wrong. But at some point, we want people to do better and feel better. And yes, a lot of that has to do with public policy. A lot of that has to do with grassroots campaigns about it and protests and all the other stuff and love thy neighbor, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is true. But what do you do in the moment? That is the part that, in all honesty, I don't think we've solved. And there's a wide range of reactions at this point that are considered acceptable. I have no idea which one of them is right. I'm just telling you exactly how I usually respond. And if anybody ever wonders about it, I'm a Jersey guy. Anybody that's ever worked with me, anybody that's listening to this podcast, my coworkers or whoever, I know some of you do. You've admitted it. You've seen how I've reacted, and actually, I'm just going to be very selfish, and I'm going to take this time to say thank you, because you guys have always had my back.
Yeah, we Jersey guys don't really mess around when it comes to stuff like that. So I want to add something that Matt didn't really mention, but I think from a psychological perspective and a psychiatric perspective needs to be addressed. It's the gaslighting and the notion that he suffers this break because he was gaslit for such an extended period of time. Now, we can get into black noir and why he did what he did and the whole, my purpose is not being fulfilled, so I'm going to go forth and make my purpose a thing. But because Homelander is a prick in general, black noir says, I'm just going to add all this other stuff. And it gets to the point that Homelander believes, well, I've done this, so I must have done this other stuff because it kind of tracks. And that's what leads to him going, as Matt says, in for a penny, in for a pound. And that's what leads to the psychotic break. But gaslighting, and for those of you, by the way, who are a little unfamiliar with the term gaslight, and I think it was just added to the dictionary not that long ago. It's one of Oxford's words that they added. Gaslight comes from this old play, which is then turned into a movie back in the late 30s, early 40s, I forget, called Gaslight, in which the husband, he makes his wife believe that she's going crazy, and by tweaking all of these little things to her so that she starts to question her reality and whether or not she's accusing him of having an affair, among other things. And so basically he starts messing with things. And one of the ways in which he does it is by playing with the gaslighting, hence the term of the show and hence the the term. Matt says it's a great play. It's a fantastic movie. I always say to this day, it's a running joke in my family that we go, "Oh, Paula, you are going crazy," because I forget who it was. It was a French actor who played in the movie, and Paula was the wife. And so where I was like, "Oh no, Paula, you are seeing things, you are going crazy." But it's the notion of making you question the reality that you're living in. And it became a very big thing, not to get too political, but it became a very big thing over the prior administration, because there was a lot of accusations that the administration and some of the associated media were trying to gaslight Americans into thinking that certain things didn't really happen, or that they didn't happen the way that they were. A lot of it is tied into narcissism as well. I'm kind of getting off track, but I just wanted to give that little disclaimer and explanation as to what gaslighting is and why it can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
And why you shouldn't do it.
Right. Well, when I actually used my Twitter account as Doc Issues, which I barely do at all ever, one of the things, though, I did put up as a retweet was with the statement, "Perception is reality," was a news beat reporter basically out on the scene of a storm. And you see the stance he's taking, and he's basically making it look like the storm is just like out of control. He can barely hold his footing, et cetera, et cetera. Except you see people right behind him that are walking normally and staring at him because they're like, "What the heck are you doing?" And so the idea that you can frame any situation any way you want in your own mind, let alone anyone else's, and then use that as motivation to do something, that's what we do all the time. It's how we function. This is going to sound very out there too, and I'll admit this is a bit of a tangent, but we all create our own little teeny tiny delusional concepts that allow us to have a better experience of life. That's just the way we are wired. And it doesn't have to be a problem until it's a problem. So, yes, if you make the idea that everything that a person is experiencing in their life is wrong, that's a horrible way to go about things. And I'm going to tie it again to something that had been going on for years and that we still do because of stigma related to people that do seek mental health assistance at times. For example, if you say to your therapist that you want to make sure that your neighbors aren't bringing you down, the first thing the therapist should say is like, "Wow, that's, that definitely sounds stressful. Tell me more about this situation." Not, "Well, I don't think your neighbors are really against you." You don't know. So gaslighting is not just a technique for people that are narcissists and manipulators that are ruining everyone around them. It's also something that happens in the hands of people that are supposed to be helping. So the fact that you brought it up again and that Matt even mentioned it in the case of Homelander, yes, it made a horrible situation for a person who does bad things infinitely worse. But my thing is, it can also be a situation where someone is trying to make things better and they make it worse. It really is a situation where, as I've said before in a different episode, it's okay to believe someone until they give you a reason not to. And it may be healthier to approach things from that front, barring very obvious things, okay? I'm not saying don't question what appear to be just flat out wrong things. I'm just saying, for that person, if that's what they're experiencing, acknowledge it. Because that is how you start the conversation, rather than just going off of the idea, and I apologize for the colloquial, the horrible terms here, if you just say someone is nuts, they're psycho, they're crazy, they're off their rocker, they're all the other stuff that people say that now has become our regular vernacular. It doesn't have to be that way. And I do my best over the years to start using that less and less, because I've recognized that for some people, they've had to hear this their whole lives, whether it had to do with psychosis or other paranoia or just even anxiety and obsessing about things. Hearing those terms over and over again just discredits the person's existence, and that's not fair.
Absolutely not. No. And yes, there are times in which the belief people can be pushed to limits, but by and large, as you said, believe them until they give you a reason not to. So we are going to take a break. We're going to plug our sponsor, BetterHelp, and some of our friends. And when we get back, we will get into treatment. Stay tuned. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? BetterHelp will assess your individual needs and match you with a licensed professional therapist. You can begin communicating within 48 hours.
It isn't a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online. BetterHelp has a network of over 15,000 counselors with a broad range of expertise. You can log in and message your counselor anytime and get timely and thoughtful responses. You can also schedule regular video or phone sessions. No waiting room required.
BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if you feel you don't have a good connection. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial help is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/capes, that's better HELP, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional.
Special offer for Capes on the Couch fans. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/capes.
Well, hello there. I'm Brian Wayne, host of the Cheers to Comics podcast, and I'm here to bring you the ultimate comic book podcast for readers and lovers and collectors of all levels. Whether you're trying to get caught up on last week's books or you're just looking to check out the latest interview with the latest creator, this is the podcast for you. So, if you're looking for a comic book show that doesn't stray away from the topic and you're looking to get an insight from a true fan and lover of this industry, then tune into the Cheers to Comics podcast 3 times a week as I, Brian Wayne, raise a glass to this wonderful, wonderful industry that is comics. Cheers.
Hi, I'm Erica Schultz, and this is Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling.
And we're back. So Treatment in Universe, I imagine, would have to be sponsored by Vought. And it would be because they feel that he's gotten too off the chain even for them, which is a scary proposition to make.
So I'm not that stupid. I'm not trying to have a real therapy session with this dude. You know what route actually I'm going here? This is a talk show. I'm going shock jock. I want this guy to open up Howard Stern style in terms of what's going on in his head. And I am sounding much more like just this instigator because, as we have noticed in popular media, it's not necessarily whether or not you did something intentionally. It's just what people find out. So what I need is to shut this guy down, but I need it to come from the outside in, not the inside out. I am not ridiculous enough to think that I'm going to be the one to change this man. It's not happening. So I need the wisdom of the crowds. I need enough people to basically say, like, dude, this guy needs to, he's got to go. I don't care what it is. I don't care if we have to get the entire military or other people. So, like, he's got to go. If you get enough of the public sentiment to do that, then you're going to actually get some level of change. And even if it is just for the fact that, oh my God, I'm not getting any money and now I'm getting everything taken away from me, blah, blah, blah. Like, all right, fine. I guess I got to do this other shit. I can totally see that. So from that standpoint, that might be worth a look.
All right. Well, Matt says in the live chat, only way Homelander is sitting down is if Stillwell orders him to. And that's absolutely the case. He's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart because there is no such thing. So, yeah. Good luck to you. Out of universe, then, I'm trying to determine what the analog would be here.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about someone who feels incredibly entitled and is racist and misogynistic, which actually,
yes, okay.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying let's not downplay this. Like that, this has been their life, and this is how they've interacted with everybody, and therefore they've burned every bridge possible, and yet they still think they're the man or the woman. I mean, I'll give equal opportunity, whatever. Then I try and find the right person to help them because, as I've already said, I have my limits and I have my own sense of dignity that would probably get in the way of having enough of a therapeutic conversation to truly help the person. That is something that I'm very honest with about myself. Now the other side to this, and by the way, just kind of not even retconning, but just to add, I know I talked more on the racial side as opposed to the misogynist side, mainly because I'm a male and therefore it was difficult for me to put it. But I mean, every aspect of what he said in the comics and his actions in the comics are just absolutely horribly degrading to anyone with a conscience of what it means to be human. So I think the question becomes, who is equipped to have therapy with a person like that? And I don't know if there's necessarily an answer per se, only to indicate that there are people that are willing to put in that much time and energy and due diligence to make sure that they are able to maintain proper boundaries for themselves while continuing to try and make that connection with that person. And I apologize if I sound a little defeated in how I say that, but it's because I know that I can only do this for such a limited amount of time. And I'm talking like per interaction. I'm not even talking about long sessions or anything like that. And it's times like that I'm grateful that I am a hospital-based psychiatrist, because those are very limited in scope. And the expectations of what we're supposed to do is, all right, you're not punching anybody in the face. You're not killing people. You're not doing damage to property. You're not overtly saying the things that we know are deeply etched into your mind. And you have the common sense to not say them out loud so you don't immediately get arrested. All right, good for you. I'm glad that you made that progress to recognize that things that you say and do have consequences. Maybe one day in your lifetime, you'll actually mean it.
Now, I ask you this as a legitimate question. For dealing with somebody who's got this deep baked in racism and sexism and so on and so forth, would it have to be a situation where, unfortunately, their therapist would have to be a white man because you couldn't even get a breakthrough otherwise? Or conversely, should their therapist be a black woman to immediately push back on all of those notions, with the possibility you run the risk of, if somebody is that racist and sexist and their therapist is a black woman, that they're just immediately going to shut down and they're not going to get any kind of breakthrough? Do you have to present it through the mouth of a white man as the only way to get any little claw of a finger of a foothold in with that kind of person? I'm legitimately asking because I don't know how you would ponder. I don't know how you would get across to them otherwise.
So what I'm about to say is simultaneously one of the most hopeful things that I can say, while also being one of the most draining things that I can say. I've seen it work both ways, and I don't immediately know which one it'll be each time, which means that because we do not have that luxury, we do not have the ability to mix and match when it comes to therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, et cetera, we got what we got. So yes, it is something that we take into consideration, and it is something that we try and think of ahead of time for the person to have the best possible therapeutic experience. But if it's just us, then we'll do whatever we deem is ethically appropriate.
Okay. That's a fair and honest answer. I'm not surprised to hear that. It was just like I said, I'm also not surprised to know that these kinds of things are factored into the discussion. It was just something that, like I said, when hearing about this and saying, you have to try and make slow, concerted effort to break it down bit by bit. Like we said last week with Donna Troy, it comes very slowly, but by the same token, also understanding the reality of the situation, that if it's that deep rooted, that they're just going to immediately discredit anything that they say from jump, regardless of what they could say the most profound, intelligent, deep hit, hard hitting stuff possible. But if it's coming out of the mouth of somebody that doesn't look like they look and that they're just not going to listen to, then it might as well be in a foreign language because they're not going to understand it. So I wanted to get that take on it.
Yeah, much appreciated. I'm glad you asked that question.
So before we get Homelander on Dr. Issues' couch, let me just say two things. One, for the regular release, this episode is going to be bleeped, or the skit is going to be bleeped, but due to the nature of the character, and we try and write these folks as they are, there's very not safe for work language that you're going to hear over the next several minutes. Related to that, Doc and I had a discussion about some of the things that Homelander says in here. And again, we do our best to try and write true to character. So I'm not going over the line. I'll say it this way. I'm not going over the line with anything that I'm saying through the character, but I'm coming real close. And so I apologize in advance.
Yeah, I would also like to say that I, Doc Issues, am a consenting adult working with Anthony on this podcast for the sake of entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. This is definitely an adult skit that if you are sensitive to certain topics or behaviors that, although we do address in a mature way for the most part, this is a skit that dives heavily into certain areas that you don't always hear on this show. So we felt that we needed to be true to the characters, and therefore we are using that poetic license to provide you a very candid and yet very stupid way of handling someone like this.
So it's a long way to say we're going to say some really messed up stuff in this. So don't take it quite so seriously. With all of that being said, in nome di Patri, Filii, Spiritus Sancti, let's get Homelander on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Homelander. I'm Dr. Issues.
Good afternoon, Doc. I appreciate all mental health professionals. You know, I may wear a cape, but you're a true hero.
Thanks for that.
So how long you been with the company?
Company?
Vought. I figured it had something to do with the casualties from my last appearance. Real shame those people were in the car. Unfortunately, those terrorists were too far away for me to get to in time, and I had to throw something at them.
I don't work... Wait, what?
You know how it is. Bad guys with guns. So had to make a choice. There was a car nearby, so I tossed it at the terrorists. Wasn't until I heard the screams that I realized it wasn't empty. And super though I may be, I'm only so fast. I mean, I'm no A-train, that's for sure.
Oh, no. I've met many first responders who have had to make snap judgments like that, but not with such force.
Yeah, they're usually little bitches about it. I got over that shit a long time ago.
So you don't really care that there may have been any other way to handle life and death situations?
Do you have any real suggestions? I mean, I can see someone like you acting all Monday morning quarterback, but I mean, who really gets their hands dirty? That's my job.
I'm not disrespecting you by asking to expand your thought process. You said you respect mental health professionals, right?
Oh, real professionals, yes.
What's that supposed to mean?
Oh, someone who got where they are through hard work and dedication, not just to fill some quota, like we do with the deep.
Well, glad I have the GPA and scholarships to prove it then. Unless you think the people important enough to run this operation would place any random quack in here to talk to someone as high and mighty as you.
Anyway, I'm sure the paperwork monkeys have all that taken care of. I'll do some talk show appearances, a photo op with the family members of the Johnsons, John Bergs. Who the cares?
Homelander, I'm sorry. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I don't work for Vought.
Then why the am I talking to you?
You're right, though. It's because people have died.
Well, like I said, it's their fault they were nearby.
Oh my God. How does anybody believe you're a hero?
Because I save poor bastards like you all the time.
Okay. I'm done pretending. Homelander, currently you're under arrest by the United States military in conjunction with the deaths of 4 civilians along with mass property damage, and I'm here to assess your competence prior to that trial.
What the
And to ensure your cooperation, you've been placed inside an energy field, which I might as well reveal to you now.
Are you fucking kidding me?
So, now that we got that out of the way.
You listen to me, you pencil-pushing You have no goddamn right to keep me here. And I assure you, as soon as I get out, the first thing I'm doing is ramming my fist so far down your throat, you'll be able to chew out your own ass for being so retarded.
So since you're being detained, I don't need to tell you that this is not meant as therapy to improve anything. You've already given me the information I need to make a decision as to whether or not you're dangerous.
You're goddamn right I'm dangerous. I'm the most powerful thing on the planet. There's no God, there's no man in the sky to save you. There's just me. And all you worthless peons can suck my asshole.
At this point, due to severe agitation, I'm required to ask if you have any history of medication that has helped you stay calm and perhaps relax for a while.
I relax by jerking off, and when I'm done killing you, I'm gonna beat my over your corpse.
Duly noted. Then it's my selection with regards to... We usually use injections, but how do we deliver medication to an invulnerable being?
You're not gonna deliver you understand me? For someone who's supposedly smart enough to graduate whatever degree mill you came from, you're oblivious to how utterly you are when I break this field. There isn't a thing that can hold me forever. And the fact that you haven't run away screaming means you're even dumber than you look, you stupid nit.
All right. That's enough of that. Okay, I was entertaining you up to this point because your blustering really isn't all that uncommon in my area of practice. But the racism, that's a special kind of heinous. You know what? That's it. We're done here.
No, we're not done. You can walk away, but I promise I will find you and I will end you.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Fuck you! Ah!
Oh!
I told you I'd kill you, and now to relax. What the did I tell you, huh? I do whatever the I want, when I want, because I'm God. You worthless little So that happened.
I can't even pretend. Like, that's just so messed up on so many levels, man.
Again, we apologize to our listeners. We understand that there's a range in which you're used to hearing these skits. They go sometimes a little funny, sometimes a little wacky, sometimes a little serious. And then there's this one where we've got racism and masturbation and horrific violence and things that I personally would never say. Ever. I just want to be perfectly clear about that. And I know our longtime fans will understand that, but I need to be clear for my own conscience that this is just, there's only so far we can normally go, but this guy required just that little extra bit. So recommended reading is The Boy's Hero-gasm. This is really kind of the last part of the story that really goes into some of the explanation on Homelander and everything. The series, like I said, it's not really our cup of tea personally, but if you're looking for, there's only like 60 something issues, I think, of The Boys in general, or at least before Homelander gets killed by Black Noir. So you can plow through those. They're all on Comixology. If you have Comixology Unlimited, the whole omnibus is available to download. So you can just read the whole shebang. It'll take you probably 2 hours or so to get through. You'll need to take a shower when you're done because you'll probably feel dirty and disgusting about some of the stuff that goes on in there. But that would be the reading. So next week, we're doing Polaris, and then we will be off for our winter break. And then we will come back in January with new episodes. So as always, you can find all of our episodes on our website, capesonthecouch.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Capes on the Couch. So please give us a like, follow, subscribe, what have you. And please feel free to share the content. Go to patreon.com/Capes on the Couch and subscribe at the $1, $3, or $5 levels and unlock cool additional content. And that's about all I've got. Like I said, again, apologies to everybody. This is well outside the usual range. But with that being said, Doc.
So then the gentleman asked, what do you call that skit? And I proudly said, The Aristocrats.
I would do my Gilbert Gottfried impression, but my son is sleeping in the next room. And then I would just go off on a long and very lengthy, horrific tangent. And I would end it by rubbing olive oil on a balloon. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.